Part 3, tuning a recurve ball. Hi, this is Shihan Hussaini, your archery coach and director of Archery Mission, as well as the director of the Coaches Committee, Archery Association of India. You are in the Level 1 Recurve Bow Specialization Workshop for Archery Coaches of the Archery Mission and the Archery Association of Tamil Nadu, TAAT. In this section, Archery Coach Level 1 trainees, you are going to learn about finding the limb center, how to find the center of the bow limbs. Number 2, how to center the arrow. Number 3, you are going to learn how to align the bow sight pin. The bow sight pin, which is the bow sighter, or we also call it the aperture. You're also going to learn how to set the clicker on the bow, and setting the cushion plunger pressure. How to set the cushion plunger pressure. We call it the plunger button. And next and finally, you learn how to set the initial brace height, the distance between the pivot point and the string. Now let's start with finding the limb centers. In order to have a reference point from which to adjust the arrow's left or right position on the bow, you have the bow to find the right or the left position in relation to the bow. It is necessary to find and mark the exact center of the limbs on your recurve bow. During the whole setup process, the bow should be mounted on a bow vise. What is a bow vise? A bow vise is a contraption that holds the bow firmly in any position so that the limbs do not touch anything, so this can distort the fragile limbs. It is used to, the bow will be kept and fit in a bow vise. An elaborate vise is commercially available, but a simple tool can be made of wood to accomplish this. Or you can even keep it in the stand. We keep it on a chair when we do this. The wooden vise can be set to hold the bow either vertically for limb arrow alignment or horizontally for serving the string. To find the limb center for a recurve bow, place a piece of masking tape across the inside of each limb near the limb pockets here. Measure the width of each limb and make a small vertical mark on the tape in the exact center of each limb, about 15 centimeters, 6 inches from the limb pockets of the riser. Be very accurate while doing this and measure several times to know you have located the exact center of each limb. This mark will be used for arrow centering. It may be easier to see if the string is centralized if 2 lines are drawn on the paper mark and on the limb instead of 1, which are 3 millimeters apart. So instead of drawing 1 line, you can do 2 lines. With 1 line, this line will be hidden behind the string where alignment is being checked. More conveniently, use commercially available limb line gauzes available from most archery store shops. We will be demonstrating this in the practicals in the sessions at the venue of the workshop when you come down. After you mark the limb centers on the tape or install the limb line gauzes, stand back and attempt to sight align the string with the 2 marks. If you cannot do this, you will need to either average the alignment, or if your bow has the capacity of adjusted limb alignment, do so. This is most easily accomplished by placing 1 mark tape where the limb comes out of the riser and 1 tape at 15 centimeters or 6 inches from the bow tip on both the limbs for use. You can use specific gauzes. You can then check the alignment of the 4 marks to assess if the limbs are properly aligned. Stand back and sight through the string to see if it covers all the 4 marks. If not, make limb alignment adjustments as required. There are limb alignment adjustments on both the sides. Some bows may have a slightly bent riser or crooked limbs. In this case, since the string will not perfectly bisect the center of both limbs at the same time, you will need to compensate or average the string position for the slight imbalance. This does not mean the bow will not shoot accurately. It simply means you need to compensate for the situation. Now, centering the arrow. Next, we'll see how to center the arrow. Adjusting the arrow's left-right position. The objective of arrow centering is to have the arrow leave the bow in the same vertical plane as the average string force moves. To accomplish this, the archer should stand behind the bow, which is held in a vertical position, and sight forward through the string, which is aligned with the bow center line. See, for proper arrow centering, the arrow should be moved in or out from the bow so that the point appears just to the left of the string. String, bow, the head should be out of the string on the left side. For bows equipped with a cushion plunger, this can be accomplished by turning it in or out. Bows without a cushion plunger can be built out from the bow face if the arrow must be moved left. You can build it up, you can add something there. However, the point is already outside the string. It is impossible to move the point further right because the riser is there. Now next, let's go to alignment of the bow sight pin. Set the sight pin or aperture on your bow sight directly over the string when it is aligned down to the center of the bow. The one object of the tuning process which follows is to select the correct arrow and bow adjustment so that the arrow is aimed and moves forward in the force plane of the moving bowstring as the arrow is shot. You will notice a number of archers whose sight is either outside or inside of the string. It is outside or inside, the sighter. This is because they have tuned the bows to an improper initial arrow alignment or are using arrows either too stiff or too weak for their setup. Now, how do you set the clickers? Let's move to the setting the clicker. There are several things to be aware when using a clicker. Be sure that the arrow is well supported on the rest and not held in place only by the tension of the clicker. Draw the bow a few times without the clicker to make sure the arrow can be drawn and let down without the arrow falling off the arrow rest. The clicker tension and angle are important too. The clicker should not be so stiff that it actually moves the cushion plunger in or places a downward pressure on the arrow. To test this, stand in front of a target and draw the arrow through the clicker as if you are going to shoot, but do not shoot the arrow. Rather, watch only the arrow on the rest to detect any movement of the arrow the moment the arrow is pulled through the clicker and the clicker makes contact with the riser. If there is any movement of the arrow, either a bounce on the arrow rest or the arrow moves out due to the cushion plunger activation, you need to correct this. This must not be there must not be any observable movement of the arrow when the clicker is activated. Now let's go down to setting the cushion plunger pressure, the plunger button, alright? If the bow is equipped with a cushion plunger, set the plunger tension to 40% of the tension of the lightest spring. We have several springs. Out of that, take the lightest spring and set it to 40%. The setting will change later in the tuning process. If you don't use a cushion plunger, you normally should, your tuning adjustments are going to be far more limited in the tuning process. Now let's go to the next section, setting the initial bracing height, the distance between the pivot point and the string. Start with the brace height at the lower end of the manufacturer's recommendation range or use the measurements that I'm now going to tell you. For a 64 size bow, you need to have 21 centimeters to 21.6 centimeters. For 66 height bow, 21.3 centimeters to 21.9 centimeters. For 68, 21.6 centimeters to 22.2 centimeters. For a 70 height bow, tall bow, you need to use 21.7 centimeters to 22.5 centimeters. Sometimes you can use a little more also. The manufacturer's recommended brace height setting is only a guideline. Please remember, changing the brace height to a slightly higher or lower position can affect arrow flight and grouping. The proper setting for best arrow grouping performance will be determined later in the tuning section. Well, so much for this session. Let me revise the entire thing. In this session, what all did we see? We found out how to see the limb center. The first, how to center shot alignment. Number two, how do we center the arrow? How do we keep the arrow? Next, how to align the bow sight pin or the aperture. Why aperture? Because sometimes you just have an aperture without a pin. Then we went to how do we set the clickers. Then we went to setting the cushion plunger pressure. And finally, we dealt with for what kind of bows, for what height of bows, how much the initial bracing height has to be. Well, catch you again with the next part. Let's break up here. Since the lecture is loaded with information, it is not going to get into your head easily. If it does, as I usually say, you must truly be a genius. Please listen to the lecture over and over again on your headphones. This will truly help you understand what I have been saying. Keep repeating to hear the lecture till you are thorough with it and thorough with the subject matter. I will be explaining every part of this lecture in simple detail in several sessions in the language you understand. All through the year with many, many more lectures till you have completely grasped it. It has gone into your head and it is sunk into your heart. God bless you all. Catch you soon in the next section. This is Who.